All right. I came across this Bible verse this morning, guys. I want you to listen to this. This is Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17. It says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." Okay, in his right hand. Now, I want to play this video that I came across on Twitter. It's this guy in China. He went to the grocery store or the convenience store to buy some chips. He forgot his wallet. Check this out. Hang on. I messed it up. Let me share the screen.
That's all right. That's an editing fix.
All right, you guys can see it?
Yep.
Right, so now I'm going to pay for it. I've left my phone and my card at home. I actually got nothing.
With his hand, is he doing that?
Yeah, with his hand. It dings.
Wild, man.
Look at that. How crazy.
Mate, this
Oh,
country
dude, he's
is
excited,
blowing my mind. It's paid with my palm.
Yeah, it's blowing my mind too. Dude, our local Whole Foods implemented the same exact thing. You can actually pay with the palm of your hand at the store itself, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I was there with my kid
insane.
the other day and like he looked at it and was like, "Oh man, that's cool." I was like, well, not exactly. No, there's a lot of stuff like that. I've seen a lot of that going on. Whole Foods, like I said, I was somewhere else the other day and they had that exact thing in there too. I don't know. I think that's going to become common for sure.
Yeah,
but it's crazy that it's here too. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy that it's like we kept hearing about this stuff and like, I mean, I remember hearing about that in like the 90s when like I was a kid and I was like, how in the world would that ever be a thing? And now like you can see more and more. It's like, okay, that could actually very easily be implemented and is being implemented right now. So, and I think it's just going to get more and more and more common. I think it's going to be, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's about the convenience of it, right? It's like, oh, awesome. I can go to the store without a wallet or without my phone and pay. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to do that. But I don't know. Opens the door to some tricky stuff for sure. Yeah. How do you do that, Brett? Do you know?
Yeah. So basically on this graphic that I'll throw up on the screen here, it's this little chip that's implanted in between these two bones here.
God, so man. Like, so it is like it's right out of the Bible.
Right out of the Bible. He lays it on the scanner and it says, in the Bible, it says, you know, the mark is connected to commerce and it's given to all people regardless of social class or status. And it prevents people from buying or selling without it. And that's what they're trying to do.
Crazy.
Right? And the social credit scores in China that they have, this is exactly what they're trying to do. You have to get this if you want to buy and sell. You have to connect everything to it. And if you screw up, if you go against the narrative, then you get docked points and you know, they either take your money, they don't allow you to buy certain things. There is no end to what they can control if they get this chip in your hand.
So I'll say this too. Just to be clear and fair, I do think the one at my local grocery store is more, I don't think it's chip based, although I could be wrong about that. I do think it's something to do with like the unique fingerprints of your hand tied to, you know, your own bank account or like having an account with them. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I don't know that it's a chip thing, although I would not be shocked either way. I'll say that.
I can't fathom putting something. My kids did the same thing. They thought it was awesome. They were like, that's so
totally
cool.
They think it's really cool.
And I'm saying Antichrist and this and that. And they're like, that's so cool. And I'm like, Satan. They're like, what?
They're like, the devil? No. Well, that's the thing too, though. I mean, like, if you think about it, that technology is really cool. Like, and I think there's going to be a lot of stuff like that, especially as we progress more and more toward these ideas. I think there's going to be a lot of cutting edge stuff that it's like, oh, dude, that's awesome. I want to do that. Why would you not want that? Yeah. I think that like the next like generation will look at a lot of that stuff and say, why would you not want that? You guys are so old and outdated and scared about everything, which is, to be fair, is kind of true. But I do think that there's a lot of that's going to be happening. So. Yeah.
That's the problem with technology is it's making everything easier. Ever since the invention
100%.
of the wheel, things have been getting easier. We developed
100%.
We had horses, we developed a bicycle, The bicycle became the car. Horses became obsolete. Now we have planes. We can get across the country in a couple of hours.
Right.
Now we can talk to people like this. You know, the idea of technology making things more convenient does not necessarily make things better. It makes people obviously less healthy. It makes people less equipped to do anything, you know, movement wise. So I think that technology is great. We're not knocking technology, but at the same time, at what cost to the human population?
Speaking of health,
Let's
did you guys
get into it.
Read that Men's Health Journal thing?
Number one is Chipotle.
Chipotle. What was number 2? Did they say, was it Burger King?
Burger King. Burger King came in at number 2.
And then Chick-fil-A. So this is the thing with a lot of that stuff. It's blatant misinformation at its finest. I mean, you're taking metrics that are, I think, pretty understood to be old school ways of thinking, right? Like, yes, calories count in like overall health. Yes, fat counts. Yes, cholesterol. All these markers that they discuss as the main deciding factors as to is this healthy or not. All of that stuff matters, but it matters in a much greater picture, right? They are not talking about where this meat comes from. Is it grass fed? Is it grass finished? Are hormones added? Are antibiotics added? They're not talking about any of that. And they're definitely not talking about also, which I think is just as important, seed oils. What is this stuff cooked in? Right. So I looked this up. So, okay. It said, Chipotle was number 1. So I looked this up online, to be fair to Chipotle. They do use canola oil in some of their dishes. They do use there's
soybean oil
and soybean oil. Yeah, correct. But then they also use rice bran oil, which I didn't know a lot about this. And it seems like it is, marginally healthier, just in terms of it's not as processed as the rest of those oils are. Still contains kind of a disproportionate amount of omega-6s than it does 3s, which I guess, a lot of those do.
Right.
And then I also looked at the meat content. A lot of Chipotle, well, a lot. Half of what I found, half of their meat is grass-fed and or grass-finished. They don't use antibiotics and they don't use hormones. So to give them the credit that I think is deserved there, I think that that's great. I don't agree with this article calling them the healthiest based off of the metrics that they chose in there. But I think that in general, I think Chipotle does a nice job with that stuff. Is it the healthiest? I don't know.
They're cheap.
And it also kind of like begs the question. And I know that we have talked about this on the show before. Like what are the legal ramifications of saying that something is grass fed or grass finished? Can you get away with, like, if an animal eats grass in its entire lifespan, can you technically legally call that a grass-fed animal? I don't know if you can or not.
This is from the USDA. What is grass-fed meat? The diet shall be derived solely from forage consisting of grass, annual and perennial, forbs, so those are legumes, and brassica, like beans, browse, or cereal grain crops in the vegetative pre-grain state. Animals cannot be fed grain or grain byproducts and must have continuous access to pasture during the growing season. So even to get, like, we've made this distinction of grass-fed versus grass-finished, how important that is. But even having the simple label of grass-fed seems way above something that is not grass-fed. I mean, if something's grass-fed, it's not your factory-farmed beef.
Which, man, like,
that's a big difference.
Give credit where credit's due, right? Good
for sure.
Good for Chipotle on that. I mean, that's important.
For sure. That's like, the difference in pasture-raised eggs versus cage-free. Like, cage-free, they never see the light of day. You know? They just sit inside, and it's like the middle of Hong Kong in there.
Right. Now let's talk about Burger King.
How they came in number 2.
Man. Yeah, well, look, I don't know.
Let me play this video. I got Paul Saladino went into a Chick-fil-A and he got all the ingredients. So when you go and you go,
oh, nice.
First off, healthy and fast food should never go together. That's the title of the That's the headline for the news article. Should never go together, but when you go get a chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A, let me share the screen and show you guys what you're getting in your sandwich.
I'm going to hate this. I can already tell you.
Over 100 ingredients in here. You are led to believe this is 100% chicken. I even asked them, is your grilled chicken sandwich, is that 100% chicken?
Hey, it would be real big trouble if it wasn't.
But a small amount of research will show you there are actually 46 ingredients in this grilled chicken patty. What's in here? Soybean oil and canola oil, modified cornstarch, processed sugar, xanthan gum, dimethylpolysiloxane, which is an ingredient in silly putty, is in here. This is nowhere close to 100% chicken. And that's not the end of it. 61 ingredients in this bun, also containing processed sugars, seed oils, gums, and that's not even including the Chick-fil-A sauce, which has a first ingredient of soybean oil. I'm all for
I love the
healthier
Chick-fil-A
fast food
sauce.
options, but marketing something like this as healthy and having 61 ingredients in this bun and 46 ingredients in this chicken patty, that's not healthy. That's just us getting played.
Crazy.
You guys ready to go Chick-fil-A after this or what?
Yeah, I'm starving. Let's do it. Man, that's very discouraging, and it really makes you kind of think, I mean, how much marketing plays into that, right? Like, how did Chick-fil-A market themselves as a healthy alternative? Was it basically that they like chose, hey, we're going to sell chicken instead of beef? Like, was chicken at that time considered healthier than beef? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Because I think it's because the whole fat is bad for you.
Yeah.
Line that we've been fed our entire
That's
lives.
what I was thinking
and so
too.
you can get the all white meat chicken. It's leaner, it's higher protein, all these taglines that they use. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I won't get fat eating a bun with 46 or 61 ingredients. Yeah.
Crazy, man. It's terrible for you. I'm sure margins came into play there, right? It's like, hey, we could get this for a lot cheaper.
So, Mark, about the chickens, it says, yes, Chick-fil-A changed their chicken by switching from a, quote, no antibiotics ever policy to now a, quote, no antibiotics important to human medicine policy. which means they now allow some antibiotics to be used on their chickens, but only those not typically used to treat humans.
What are the health ramifications of that?
They don't know.
What is...
They don't know. They said they made this change to maintain a consistent supply of chicken. So to keep up with demand, and that's the thing, to keep up with demand, to keep up with profits, these things have to be made. This is why canola oil, soybean oil, all these things. I mean, the majority of farmland in America is dent corn and soybeans that are used to feed cattle and to make soybean oil. So it's like, because that's the margins, and we've got to change the landscape. We can't just allow soybean oil, like farmers using 40,000 acres to raise soybeans that could be used for regenerative farming for cows and chickens and things that feed people way higher nutrients. It's denser food. It keeps them fuller longer. It keeps them healthier. Yeah. I mean, it's a no-brainer when you talk about it, but did you also see this little bit about Panera bread at the bottom of that article?
Read it. What does it say?
So Panera bread came in fourth, and they're saying it's ironic because there's this student at UPenn who died by drinking their charged lemonade. Did you know they had charged lemonade?
I don't know what's in it, but it raised the eyebrows of the FDA, I believe, right?
So it's basically, they have the lemonade next to the non-caffeinated drinks, and it's basically caffeinated lemonade with guarana and what else is in there? But let's see. According to the filing, a 30-ounce serving of charged lemonade contains as much as 390 milligrams of caffeine.
Oh, wow.
Which is more than the caffeine levels of a Red Bull and a Monster energy drink combined, which is at 274.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but that's insane. Like 300 is an insane amount.
If you're not expecting it, right.
And that's what's interesting is, so they didn't alert the customers to the caffeine levels, and this UPenn student, Sarah Katz, she died by cardiac arrest in September of 2022. Now, it could be something else. You know, a lot of people are dying of cardiac arrest lately, but also she had a heart condition called long QT syndrome type 1 and avoided energy drinks at all costs.
Interesting.
So if they were hiding it, then that's a big deal. I mean, 390 milligrams to, let's say, on average, 110 to 120 pound girl is an insane amount of caffeine. And if she...
How many of those did she have?
It doesn't say, but
yeah, you're getting a lot of caffeine in that. That's really dangerous. It's a great question. And Mark, I think you said it in there. I think that if you were eating clean 70, 80% of the time, and then there's 20% of the time that you're in a hurry and got to go eat 61 ingredients in a Chick-Fil-A sandwich, I think that's okay. You know, I think it really is about like the balance of it. I mean, if you're definitely eating heavier on, you know, unprocessed meats, healthy vegetables, I think all of that stuff really plays into you being able to go out on the weekend and have, you know, a milkshake or a dessert or like any of that stuff. I think you just have to make sure that the good outweighs the bad. I think it's as easy as that. I really do. And I think also, I think you have to kind of look at your own markers, like what triggers you most. Like for me, alcohol is a major trigger. And just by show of hands, who has drank too much on this holiday? Man, yeah, dude, guilty. I have, and to be fair, like, I'm not saying that I've drank too much and had hangovers or like any of that stuff. But for me, as I've gotten older, 1, 2, 3 drinks is enough to make my next day I don't think clear. I don't look good. I don't feel good. Dude, seriously. And it's like, again, it's not that I'm hungover and I have this terrible headache and I'm throwing up or like any of that crap. It's just that I don't feel good. I don't move good. So I think knowing exactly what like the triggers are, I mean, honestly, I think alcohol for like everybody's probably like a huge trigger. But I think that if you can eliminate those things in your own life, or at least limit those things in your own life that really trigger you, I think that's just as crucial for sure.
I am not about balance. I say to hell with balance. I am so unbelievably pissed at the entire society that we're so greedy for the almighty dollar that we're willing to infect our youth with all this shit that we're putting in stuff to save a buck. And
I agree with that.
If I'm being honest, there is no balance with me, and it's been a struggle with me, and not with me and family, but you know, it's very difficult to send your kids. I actually had this talk with my daughters the other day. I send them to school with beef patties and a slab of butter and fruit. And so that's what they'll have, and they'll heat up the beef patty and they'll eat it. And all their friends are like, that's disgusting. And so they're kind of getting made fun of, and they're seeing this, and I don't want to be that guy that they're getting made fun of, but kids are so brainwashed, except for like one boy will come up to one of my daughters and be like, that looks amazing. When I put it with bacon, he's like, that looks amazing. Can your dad make me one of those?
Arrange that marriage right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, so my kids' school, it's a Christian school. It's a private school. They just, and I feel like they have every aspect of it figured out, from, you know, family, faith, but the food element of it. They just got in a vending machine. They're selling Dr. Peppers. They're selling all kinds of crappy snacks and everything. And the kids love it because, you know, it's cheap. I mean, they have like ramen in there and all these like overly processed, just garbage foods. And it's been a big discussion with us and the school. And it's like, Brett, I'm like you, man. It's like, I don't want to be that parent that like throws a fit over this stuff. But at the same time, it's like, I know how bad this crap is, and I know how much it affects kids. That's like the other thing too. Like, as adults, do what you want to do, right? But as a kid, man, it's like the foods, and I see it in my own kids. It's like the foods that they eat when they start getting into the vending machines and the snacks and all this crap. Like, it affects mood, it affects personality, it affects how they interact with us and their friends, everything. So I do feel like there's a time and a place to be that guy, as much as I don't like it. But I think that if you have the knowledge, right, you've got to use it, you know?
It's destroying the kids.
Yeah, the school thing, it's just, I mean, again, it's like, if you have knowledge and if you know how bad this stuff is for kids, you kind of need to speak up for it, right? I mean,
yeah,
you got to do what you got to do.
And nobody, you know, 80 to 90% of the people in the world aren't healthy anyway. And so it just kind of falls on deaf ears. You think, well, I'm old, I get fat and slow. That's just what happens. That's right. That's what it's like to be old. But I was listening to a podcast with Laird Hamilton the other day. You guys know who he is?
Oh, yeah.
And he was saying that he doesn't do the super strict diets, and he's shredded. He's almost 60 years old. He's like, I don't do the super strict diets. I'm very particular about what I eat when I can be. He said, but he'd rather be a diesel truck where if you put a little water in the gasoline, it's still going to run fine. Mm-hmm. And what he's saying is that like he can still eat a little bit of the garbage here and a little bit of the garbage there because he doesn't want it to wreck him when he's traveling. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important. And my wife's that way. She has to go out to dinners and stuff, and she travels a lot. And so she can't be just completely wrecked when she has to go out for a dinner or entertain or do any of that stuff. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, I'll sit there and I'll order the steak and I'll ask him to cook it in butter, and I don't want any of the fluff on the side, and everybody will just stare at me. You know, I'm like, I don't care.
Laird's a good example of that too, because I mean, that's a dude who's been active for, I would imagine, most of his adult life, though, right? I mean, surfer, just in awesome shape. I mean, he obviously, that's the type of guy who actually cares.
Right.
I think when you're doing it at that level, he has it figured out. He knows what his body can and can't take, and I do think it's about those margins. So,
okay, well, since we're on the topic of fat and being healthy, we've got this article, quote, "No one has to be healthy. San Francisco taps a fat activist as their weight stigma czar. Tover describes herself as a leading expert on weight-based discrimination and body positivity with over a decade of experience." Okay, her corporate trainings focus on creating a non-judgmental environment where professionals can build awareness, vocabulary, and best practices aimed at decreasing occupational weight-based discrimination. And do you know what she thinks is the worst thing ever for feminism and for fat people? Is when you go to that's, oh my gosh, like how could you ever be forced into doing a diet? Like, it's my right not to be healthy. Okay. So she hates it when she goes to a party. I'm going to share the screen and show this video. She hates it when she goes to a party and these women ask for these tiny slivers of cake. Check this out.
And then it comes time to cut the cake, and someone decides to ruin everything.
Oh my God, that slice is huge. That slice is bigger than Beyonce's paycheck. Can you cut me half of that?
A cake-related fat-phobic incident, or CRFI, is that moment when it's time to eat delicious cake and it's interrupted by a moralizing impulse. Inevitably, there's always someone at the party who has to declare publicly that their slice is too large, and that the person who's cutting the cake, almost invariably a woman, must do some disproportionate amount of labor in order to accommodate their need to feel superior. Let's take a look.
Can you do a little bit, just like, can you like scrape all the frosting off and cut it in half and give me 2 forks, because I'm sharing. Small, like a little bit more, like tiny, no, like less than what you're, smaller, please.
Could you just cut my piece into 12 equal symmetrical little pieces and put each one into a tiny little Tupperware so that I can have a bite for each month of 2018? Thanks.
Smaller.
Let's take a step
You guys
back
get
and
it, right?
view what's happening.
I mean, this is my thoughts on like this entire thing. Like, yes, you like if somebody is overweight, like we don't need to, of course, be, talking negative about them. We don't need to be doing any of that. But if somebody wants to watch what they're eating, and if somebody wants to take a smaller bite of cake because that's important to them, let them do it. Like, it's just like this shouldn't be a thing. There's so much crap right now that shouldn't be a thing that's a thing. It's just silly.
This is how privileged we are as a nation. We have none other important shit to do but to hire somebody who is fat to talk to us about being fat phobic. Exactly. Like, that's how great things are in this country.
Yeah.
You're also going to have extreme ailments when you're older. And now that you're employed by the taxpayer, why will your medical bills for your bullshit fall on the hardworking taxpayer?
Why do we have to cover it? Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. For sure. I mean, I think it all goes back to, it's just like, look, let people do what people do. If you want to eat cake and get obese and get lazy and not work, that's your choice and that's fine. But and we shouldn't shame them in the same way that they shouldn't shame somebody else who wants to work hard and not eat all of the cake. I mean, I think it's simple. It's very, very simple. I think we make it complex because now we have somebody that's in charge of saying exactly that. So
this is all part of a global cabal. This is my opinion, which I cannot prove, for the overlords up there. But this is entirely part of a system that says, hey, you're fat and you're dumb and you're slow. It's okay. Allow the government to take care of you. Just do what we want.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't move. Don't get in shape. This goes back to the whole thing of working out and being in shape is an alt-right thing.
Yeah, that's right.
It's 100% about that. And because you can't control those people who take care of their bodies, who want to feel better, who want to do better, who want to be sharper, but she says, quote, no matter what size you are, you don't owe anybody else your health. In an ideal world, there wouldn't be health-based gatekeeping at all. I don't even know what that means.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. What does that mean? I wonder.
I think it's saying like
gatekeeping.
Like maybe she didn't get the job because she was fat. But the irony of it is she only got the job because she was fat. They're now creating jobs for these people.
That's a valid point. I don't know. I got nothing. She's seen it all.
But this is the ignorance of it too. She says, here we can agree on something. Tover says examples of fat liberation are putting as much butter as you want on your toast. No argument there. Butter's a health food. Wearing a bikini to the beach. It's a free country. Yeah. If you want to do it, go for it. Okay.
100%.
But here she says children should never be put on a diet. My children don't diet, honestly. They eat proper human diets, if you will. They don't just sit there and just eat a shitload of junk food because people don't realize what it's doing to people's brains, let alone their bodies.
So that's where I was going to go with this, Brett, is there is a very, very clear distinction, and it's been scientifically backed for decades and decades, of what foods are good for you and what foods are not. And you can stand on this pedestal all you want and say, hey, kids should be able to eat whatever they want and not diet. Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I don't think children ought to diet. I do agree with that. I think they ought to eat healthy foods. I think they ought to eat foods that are going to give them nutrients that they need. But this idea that kids should just be able to eat whatever, no, I don't think that's good for anybody. And can they have a soda or a snack or a treat? 100% they can. But you also got to know, what those triggers are. I mean, for my kids, sugar is such a trigger. So it's like, of course, I want to limit sugar. Or dyes, or, seed oils, like the list goes on and on and on.
But look, I Googled this just now. I said, can you be overweight and healthy? And the first thing that comes up, Chicago Medicine. Yes, you can be overweight and metabolically healthy. So this is the problem with the country, is that we're paying people to do these studies. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can have just subcutaneous fat and be metabolically healthy.
Yeah.
And you can be skinny at the same time and be really metabolically unhealthy 100%. Because of all the visceral fat.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, is that this gal can go and research articles about how her being happy because she's fat is way more beneficial for her health than the fact that she's metabolically unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point too. I mean, I'm a tinier guy. It's very hard for me to put on weight, even if I'm eating all of the wrong stuff, right? Even if I'm eating all of the sugar and all of the stuff that typically makes a person gain weight, it's still very hard. So yeah, like, I don't think that there's a distinction between this is a bigger person, they're not healthy, and this is a tiny person, they are healthy. I think, it's the foods that you choose to put inside. It's how the body metabolizes it. It's genetics. There's a lot of stuff at play. But man, again, it's as simple as eat clean foods, eat foods that we know are healthy. That is the easiest thing to find. I mean, you know what's going to help you and you know what's going to hurt you. And so whether you're a bigger person or a smaller person or right in between there, it's not about that. It's about what's going in the body, and that's going to affect, size and mindset and everything.
Yeah.
I thought anybody was going to ask me about my dad jokes. sort of let down that you guys didn't.
I knew you were somewhere else, so I figured they didn't have any other coffee mugs.
I specifically chose that one. And then I went to my kid. I was like, hey, tell me like 3 awesome dad jokes. And just like, he was like ready for it. He's like, what did he say? He was like, what's the only kind of bee that produces milk and not honey? And I was like, what? And he goes, boobies. I was like,
your kid said that?
My 10-year-old said that.
Berkeley?
Like,
That's
God,
awesome.
Berkeley, where are you hearing this garbage?
Do you notice anything that happens with when your kids eat Red 40 or whatever the dyes are?
I'll be honest, I haven't really like triangulated down to that amount. I'm sure that there's, I would imagine if anything, it's like very like behavioral driven stuff.
Yeah.
I think because we had actually talked with Mark and Brittany about this. And if I remember correctly, Mark had said, there's an issue with like behavior and all that. I don't doubt it one bit. It's funny because I think Mark's oldest daughter and my oldest son, Berkeley, are a lot alike just in terms of personality.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of the same stuff that like triggers Berkeley also like triggers her. So Mark and I will just go on and on for a long time about that.
Interesting.
Sleep's the other thing too, man. Like if my kids don't get sleep, bro, it's like,
it seriously affects him.
Bad one. It's a really bad one. And they don't sleep in. So if they're, you know, like they could honestly, like I joke around about this a lot, but it's true. They could go to bed at 5 a.m. and they're going to wake up at 6 a.m. on the dot and be like ready to go.
That's how mine are too.
Is it? Yeah, man. It's so tough. And like right now it's like we're out at my in-laws, like cousins are here, family's here. And it's like, I want them to be able to like,
stay up
late and have fun and eat all the shit and everything. But I know what I'm going to deal with if that actually happens.
Right.
You know,
100%.
Sucks, man.
And it's not good for them. It's not good for you. It's not good
for anybody at that point either. You know,
I have the same thing. And what's interesting is I haven't had coffee since November 15th. So I'm over a month off of coffee. And one thing that you can't do is if you don't get, like you sleep great, but if there's some reason that you don't sleep well, you can't power through with coffee the next day.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it. You just got to eat it, you know, because your kids are up and doing whatever in the middle of the night, you know, sleepwalking. I have one that sleepwalks.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Weird. How is that?
It's wild. It took a long time to understand because she would come out and she's continuing the conversation from whatever she was dreaming about.
Oh, weird.
And it's, you know, dreams are abstract. And so you're like, what do you like the bears in the closet? You're like, what?
Wow.
There's bears in the closet and I just don't want to be in the room right now. And they're just staring you with a 1,000-yard stare. And you're like, what do you mean?
Eyes open and they're like looking at you talking and everything.
Walks down the stairs, goes into our room in the dark, and it's just like tapping you on the shoulder. And you're like, what?
It's out of a horror movie. That is crazy.
And you're like, go back to bed. And she'll go back to bed and she'll just stop at the top of the stairs and just stand there.
Does she ever remember it the next day?
No.
Wow. Crazy. We had a thing happen with my kid the other day where it was the first thing that we've ever had that was like that, but he was exhausted and we'd finally gotten him down to go to sleep and he woke up to pee. We were actually here at my in-laws house. This was like weeks ago, but he comes in the bathroom and I can tell like he's out of it. Like his hair is a mess and he's stumbling around and he goes and he's like, I gotta pee. And I'm like, all right, it's, you know, over there. And he goes and he takes his pants off and he starts peeing in the trash can. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. I gotta like pick him up and put him over by the toilet. And like the next day I told him about it. We were all like laughing and he was like, wait a minute, that was me? I did that? And I was like, yeah, don't you remember? He was like, no. I was like, weird.
Oh,
you
man.
know? But they're just out of it that much, you know?
And I used to think that some of the dyes or some of the processed foods, she would sleepwalk more.
Interesting.
But I can't confirm it, you know, because I would be, and then I tried the Wi-Fi too. When my wife was out of town, I turned the Wi-Fi off.
Yeah.
And she didn't sleepwalk when I turned that off because I realized that it's in a closet room right next to their bedroom, and their heads butt up to that wall.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought maybe that's it. It's just scrambling our brain. So turn the Wi-Fi off at night, and it seemed to be okay. And I even noticed a difference when I turned the Wi-Fi off. I was like, I felt this calm wash over me when I was laying in bed, where I'm like, it's really quiet and there's nothing going on. You can't, it's not tangible, right? You can't pinpoint what it is. You just feel a little bit easier.
But man, I think that's a good idea, dude. I really do think that stuff affects us way more than we notice,
right?
Way more than we think about. And I think once we don't have it going, I think people, I mean, like the headache thing alone, that's a huge one. We have friends who, she has chronic migraines, and she just moved into a place. It's like right next door to a 5G tower. And says that like her life right now is just miserable. She was like, I know like it's really hard to prove that it's Wi-Fi or that it's 5G or like this and that. But like, I noticed that it started whenever like I moved here. I noticed that it got worse when this had gone up, and I noticed this and that. So, you know, it's tough because it's all around us now. It's everywhere. It's really hard to escape from it, you know?